Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and I'm really excited today because my project is going to be on my BMW K1600 GTL. I'm going to be installing Roundel running lights and blinker indicators by Schroedie. The process is basically going to be the same on both sides. We're going to take a whole series of T25s off. So here, 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 behind your wind deflector right here, underneath, also in your front wheel well, and again on both sides. You're going to work your way down here, here, and here. A little bit dark, I know, but you'll see them when you look. Also, there's a lower fairing piece that's going to need to come off as well. So let me get you a little bit better angle on that. But what I usually do is I start with this back piece right here first. So let's start here. I'm going to take all of these out, and then we're going to take the lower fairing off as well, because we need to take the entire side fairing off. Sounds like a lot, but it's really not that hard. Okay, so the fairing piece that goes around your little compartment is off. You just take those two screws out, and there's a little hinge piece that just hooks up in your upper fairing. So you just rock that out and set it aside. Now, if you pull these four, so 1, 2, 3, and right above your front indicator light right here, 4, you notice your upper fairing is will now be loose. But this is where it's actually secured from underneath, so that your lower fairing right here is going to need to come off. So there's the screws in the center and up the wheel well that will take this piece off, and then it can come off entirely. And you'll want to repeat this for both sides. So let me get underneath. I'll show you the screws for your lower fairing, and then the lower fairing will come off, and then your upper fairing will come off just fine. All right, so as you can see, one of the lower screws is exposed. But what you need to do, let me get down here underneath, you'll find two more. One right here and one right there. So they're T25s as well. They're the only ones that look like it, so you can't miss it, right? So undo those two, and then come up and pull the two out of the wheel well as well. There's one right here and one right here. Then your lower fairing will come off. There's a post that goes up into the upper fairing, so when you pull it down and away. Once that's off, just like this screw is exposed, once this lower fairing is off, you'll see that there's an additional screw here and another one right here going up. So pull 1, 2, 3, 4. Your lower fairing will come off. With your upper fairing, pull 1, 2, 3, and then your upper fairing will come off. Make sure it doesn't fall. You don't want to scratch it up. Make sure that you take care of it and it looks good, right? So pull it off. So go ahead and pull all of those, and then your side fairing will be off. Repeat it on the other side. All right, so next steps are going to be very simple and easy, but you have to be gentle. So we're going to be taking this entire piece off, including the roundel. It's just held down by double-sided adhesive. Now, if you just pry up on this, it's going to break, right? So all of this is something where if you get impatient or you're not careful, you could make a mistake that's going to be painful and potentially expensive. There's a lot of different ways. It's kind of like unbadging your car or debadging your car. You can use heat, so you can use a hairdryer or heat gun on a low setting from the back side to heat up the adhesive from the back side. Also, you can use dental floss or fishing line to fish underneath and slowly cut away the adhesive. Don't pry on this because it will break, okay? Also, in addition, if you look at the back side, there are a couple of little mounting pins here and here, so it's also possible once you heat it up and you're working on it, that you could push through on these pins, and that'll help push the roundel out. Because if you think about it, the majority of the adhesive is here. There's a strip here, and I'm going to show you on the other piece, which I'm going to grab just in a second. There's this here. It's narrow, very narrow, and held together by thin plastic here. Very easy to break. With a lot of adhesive and a disc back behind on the roundel. So if you're prying up on this, expecting it to come off, you're going to break it. So let me grab me. I'm setting this on a bucket right for the moment. So on my other, as it turns out, as I look at this is already really loose, which is news to me, right? So I just realized that. So this is already really loose. You can kind of see the strip of adhesive underneath, but I don't want to pry on this because it'll break it. So I'm going to very gently heat from the backside using a hairdryer or a heat gun on low, and then I'm going to use fishing line to work it underneath and cut away this adhesive to get this piece off. get it off without breaking it. And then we're going to work through on mounting the light. Super simple. So I got both off in probably about 20 seconds. As you can see in my case, I just added adhesive in the strips where the strips are and not in the disc at all. So you might have adhesive where the disc is, you might not. So just keep that in mind. I used fishing line. I used a little bit of a heat gun in the fishing line, and then all this adhesive, which is now ruined, we're going to have to get off. So we'll deal with getting this off in just a second. And we have replacement from Schroedie, which is great. So clean all this up. You can use a little bit of rubbing alcohol. If you have that kind of gum out product to help get this off, that'll work as well. You could use something like a gasoline or that sort of thing, but not that I would recommend it. Don't do anything that's going to mess up your fairing, right? But super simple. We're going to want to get all the adhesive off, both the trim pieces and off the panel itself. So, all right, so now that you've got the trim piece off and your fairing is cleaned up, the other thing you're going to want to do is remove the roundel itself. Again, you're going to want to be super careful because it's going to be really easy to break this. Okay, so I've got one off because I wanted to show you. So it's backed by a ring of adhesive that you can see that I haven't cleaned up yet. That you're going to want to do the same. Just peel it off, use a little bit of rubbing alcohol. I found that with it actually being a little bit cold, it'll just kind of peel up and roll off, which is nice. So what I did, so there's two little pins. You can see the silver pins on each side. I pressed on those pins a little bit with a flat screwdriver, pressed on them carefully to get a little bit of gap between the black of the frame and the silver of the roundel. As soon as I could get that, I worked the edge of my plastic trim tool in. You could use a screwdriver, flat-bladed screwdriver, but of course you're going to chew up plastic, right? So I really try to use my plastic trim tools as much as I can. So I just worked it in, got a little bit of space, worked it around the edges, worked to the other side, worked it around the edges. As you can see, kind of the glue pattern, kind of worked it until it finally kind of peeled up and away, and I could push the trim tool in. So as I worked around the edges, I could slide it in and kind of wedge it up slowly and carefully to get it off. Okay, so Schroedie's included some new adhesive here that we'll use to put this back down. But you'll get all this all cleaned up, so get your roundel badges off, and then we're going to work our way through how to put the lights on. Okay, now that you can see the roundels are off and the pieces are cleaned up, we're going to need to mark some pilot holes. So we've got our lights. If you look very closely, there's an arrow. That's going to be the up side as you put it on here onto the trim. So what you're going to do is line up the larger holes with the arrow up. As you can see, once those are lined up, you can mark it with a pen, but I actually found a punch actually to be better because I could fit it down through the holes and score the plastic. So I'm going to go down and mark right there where our holes are going to be. Now, I've got the two color lights. So we're going to drill two small holes, top and bottom, and one larger hole right in the middle. So let me get my drill and get all that set up. I'm also going to put this on a wood block so I can drill down into it. I won't have to worry about applying pressure or anything and hurting this. So I'm going to lay this on a wood block, so let me show you. Okay, doing this quick and easy because my workbench is actually completely trashed. So yeah, I'm just going to do it on a wood block on the floor. Super simple. So I've got my drill. Now, what you're going to want to do is the top and bottom holes are 3.5 millimeter, and your center hole, if you have the dual light like I do, is going to be 10 millimeter. So I don't have millimeter drill bits. So I've done the conversion, and the closest I have is a 1/8, which is a little bit smaller than 3.5 millimeters, and a 3/8, which is a little bit smaller than 10. So I'm going to try both of those and make sure that they work. So if you have a 3.5 and a 10 millimeter, then use those. If not, it's a 1/8 for the top and bottom and a 3/8 for the middle. So let me drill both of those. Like I said, I'm on a wood block so I can press down on them. Obviously it's going to rock a little bit because it's sitting on its pins, but just be gentle and it should be fine. All right, so as you can see, the holes are done. Really, really easy. Just like I said, did them on a wood block, and that should work just fine. So now what we're going to want to do is put the replacement adhesive on. So you've got the discs that go right back into place on your roundels. So peel them off the sheet they come on. Don't take the white protective cover off, that second layer off yet. So put them into place like I've done on both. And then you're going to want to take this adhesive as well. And as you can see, it's shaped exactly like your trim pieces. So just match them like for like. And then we're going to put the trim without the roundels. We're going to put the trim back on the fairings. Okay, so I'm going to put the adhesive on and then press them back into place on the fairings, and then I'll show you what that looks like and what's next. Okay, so as you can see now, the trim is in place. So you're going to take, again, your same 1/8 and 3/8 or 3.5 millimeter and 10 millimeter bits and drill right down through the holes that you've made. So 3.5 here and here, 10 millimeter here, and gently drill down through the fairings, right? So I'm going to drill on a wood block again to make sure I don't, go too far. But you're going to have, these are screw holes that are going to come through for the back because you're going to put in 2 small screws on either side. And this is for the wires for the lights themselves. Okay, so get your trim attached on both, drill the holes, and then we will look to attach the lights. Okay, so now that your holes are drilled, you can actually attach your light. So again, but as before, remember the arrow to show which side is up. And you want that to be up on your fairing. You can use your trim as a reference on which side is up. And then feed the cables through one at a time, because these little fittings around them will only allow you to put them through the hole one at a time. So feed them through, as you can see, and you'll end up like this with it mounted flush with the arrow up. And then you've been provided little screws that you're going to put at the top and bottom to secure this into place that you'll screw through the back side. Now, I had 8 of them. You're only going to need 2 to secure it. So I'm actually, there's 4 shorter ones and 4 longer ones. I'm actually going to use the longer ones just to get a little bit of a deeper bite into the light here. So I'm going to feed the cable through and screw this into place on both fairings. And then we're going to walk through what's next, which is going to start to be integrating the plug at the end of all of this and how this attaches to the lighting on your bike. Okay, so now you want to fit your plug housing onto your wires, right? Because you wouldn't have been able to fit this through the fairing when it had the housing on it. You want to make sure that you match them to the plug that you're going to attach to the wiring. So you can see from the directions, so you've got your empty plug housing here, right? And you can see what direction it goes on because of the little latch. So once you figure out that orientation right here, that's super simple. You can see if you've got the 2-color or 3-color version, you're just going to match colors. So in this case, with the latch on top, it's black, red, blue. And you can see here with the one that I've already completed, that it's black, red, blue. And what you're going to do is each of these just slide into the empty plug housing right here. So here's your plug housing. You're just going to slide them in. And you'll actually hear them click into place. The pins will push in, and you'll hear a very small click. So you can pull on them gently to make sure that they come back out. They don't come back out, but they should click into place. Make sure that you get them in the right order. If need be, just go get the other wiring that you have, match it up against your plug housing, and then just get them pushed into place. Right. So this is all set and ready to go. Whether you have the 2-color or 3-color version or a 3-wire version, because I've got the 2-color lights. Okay. So we're actually going to be tapping the power off of your blinkers here up at the nose. So this piece is already pulled down a little bit because the moment I touched it, it came off, which is what I wanted it to do, but it's really, really simple. So there's actually 2 posts on each side. One post here, one post at the end right there that you can see that's the only thing that holds this into place, plus the cable on each side that plugs in for your lights. So all you have to do is pull out and down. And then you can unplug and you can actually just take this and set it aside and make it a lot easier to get to the wires that you're going to need on both sides, right? So here and here, super, super simple. Because what we're going to do next is we're going to take the wrap, right? So you might have rubber housing or you've got a wrap like this. What I'm not saying strip the insulation off the wires. What you want is the wrap. We're going to strip off about 4 or 5 inches on both sides because these are the wires that we're going to tap. So you've got blue and brown. Brown almost universally always with German cars and German motorcycles is ground, so blue's going to be power. Okay, but so pull off that front piece. It makes it a lot easier to get to these, and then very carefully strip off 4 to 5 inches or 3 to 4 of this wrap so we can get to the wires directly. Okay, so we've got our little wire connectors. So I'm going to try to demonstrate away from the bike so we have a little more room. So imagine this is the brown wire on your turn signal indicator. The brown wire is going to slot in to this on one side, like this. So you can see it kind of goes through the channel. So you're going to take this little piece and you're going to push it onto that wire. Now again, I'm using the wires that I have here handy, right? So don't think you attach blue to black and so on, right? So you're going to take the existing cable, put it through the channel that's open. You'll also see on one side that there's a port that goes in like this. So you're going to take, for example, so you've got, if you have the single light, you'll have two cables, black for ground, red for power. If you've got the two light model like I do, you'll have three. Okay, so you're going to take the black. So imagine that you have the brown wire. You're going to take the brown wire, put it into the channel. You're going to put this splice, essentially, which is what this is. Whoop. You're going to take this splice and put it onto the brown wire, like that, okay? And then you would take the black wire and fit it in to the little port on that side, and then snap the cover down. And you can take a pair of pliers to press down, or you can snap it down with your hand. And that's going to cut into the existing wire and splice into the new wire. I hope that makes sense. I'll show you, of course, on the bike, but I wanted to show away from the bike so it makes a little more sense. So again, existing wire run, slotted into the channel here. As you can see, it's all fit in really nicely there, okay? And of course, it's on the other side that I need, right? So then you would take your correct wire and you'd put it in to the little channel on the other side. So it would look like that, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. And then bang, snap it down, okay? So with all of that said, I'm going to move to the bike next because we're going to talk about, you know, all of this. You've got a lot more wire than you need for space. So you're going to have to find the right amount of space because obviously all of this is going to plug in off the end. And you're not going to need a tremendous amount of extra wire and extra length. Okay, you will need a little bit so you can get your fairings off easily when you take them off, or if you take them off next time. Now, we're also going to talk about the two light design, because for your middle wire or blue wire, you have to find a constant 12 volt so that lights up while the bike is running. Okay, you can tell I work on cars a lot, right? So let's get this set up. We're going to tap into the power lines for your blinkers, which again are going to be the red and black. Okay, and then the blue, I'll show you a good source for 12 volt power, constant 12 volt power, somewhere else on the bike. All right, so I wanted to show you what I've done if you have the two light design. So if you have the one light where it just goes with your blinkers, then this is all you need to do. Now, as you can see, I staggered them apart a little bit to give them a little bit more space. You wouldn't want to stack them on top of each other, right? So I pulled the sleeve covering back, got these splices put on, and they fit perfectly, so it works perfectly. Now, if you've got the two light design like I do, you have to find a 12 volt power somewhere. So this is actually the plug off of the onboard socket up here, the power socket, right? So I just pulled the plug and pulled a little bit off the end of the wire so I could just plug it straight in to see if it would work. And it works perfectly. So this is a great source of 12 volt power. So I'm going to run the blue wire here on the right side of the bike here, and then I'm also going to run the blue wire from the left side through the frame to the same location. Now the other thing that I've done is I've also tested this to make sure. So I've already tested my connections to make sure that it works. Now I'm going to show you what this looks like when it's up and running, but this is a good time for you to test. So if you've got the one light design, go ahead and try it. If you've got the two light design, you can do the same thing that I've done and just simply plug the wire directly into the female receptacle here on this is like the red-green side, right? So you've got brown, ground, red-green, okay? So I've tested it, works beautifully, turns on. In my case, my light is blue, my main light is blue, and then my blinker blinks yellow. So everything is great and works great there. Now, the only thing I also wanted to point out is obviously I've cut this wire down a little bit. So I cut about half the length off of the red and black, and then I slid it all into the provided plastic sleeve, so to make sure that it was going to be taken care of. So I cut about half the amount of the plastic, cut the plastic sleeve about in half. I've got about half the length of the red-black wires, which may be a little much, right? I mean, as you can see, my fairing is now sitting on a bucket it's sitting with a decent amount of cable length, right? But there's no reason for it to be super, super tight and make it hard for you to unplug this if you ever have to take your fairing off. Now, I'm still at full length blue wire at this point because I want to make sure I've got the right amount. Now, I can probably cut about half the blue wire off once I tap in here, and I'm probably going to strip somewhere back here into the middle and fish right here in the middle, because this normally plugs up and plugs into your socket right here and runs up and over the top right here and is exposed right here. So I'm probably going to pull some of the cover off about right there and tap in right there. Okay. All right, all connected and good to go. So let me show you what I've done. And I always reserve the right to change my mind. So I was going to fish to the same 12 volt on this side, but honestly, it was just too hard. Getting all the way across the bike and dealing with some wire length was just silly. So I found a 12 volt on the other side, which I'll show you. So here we are on the right side of the bike. We're all plugged in and we're connected again to the turn signal. 12 volt comes up, and then I've pulled the plug off of your socket right here, and the red with green tracer is your 12 volt line. So I unplugged it. If need be, you can actually take out the screw right here and loosens this piece to lift it up a little bit if you're having a hard time getting that plug. The cable routes up and over the top, so I pulled the plug out just like I showed a second ago, and I tapped in using these same wire taps. Tapped in, and it's all connected there. So let's take a look at the left side of the bike. So as we look at the left side, again, it's all plugged in. It's all set and good to go right here. Forgive it being a little bit dark, but it's right here. You can see that they're all connected, and it's connected to the fairing and the light. My 12 volt, I ran over here, and I've got the cable that actually plugs into your controls right here. There's a 12 volt, and again, it's red with a green tracer right here. So I tapped in right there, and you just plug this right back in. You just plug this right back in, okay? So all really straightforward, all really simple, not hard to do at all, okay? So you plug all that in, but then comes the moment of truth, okay? So what you always want to do before you put it all back together is test. So these are the 2 light editions, so I should have running lights, which I do. And again, keep in mind, you can order in different colors. I decided to order in blue. Let me lean over so you can see the other side. So you can see it's working, which is absolutely fantastic. Let's try the blinker. Aha! Looking great. Let's switch over. Looking fantastic. I am really psyched. This is gonna look absolutely fantastic. All right, so as you can see, it's all put together. Now, with the wiring. Now, all really you have to do is just put all your fairing and plastic pieces back on. It's gonna go in reverse order, okay? So your main upper fairing goes on, it attaches to the lower section, and then you get the section around your little compartments, right? So all really straightforward. You also have zip ties, so you can zip tie some of these cables up to make sure that they don't wander around. This blue one especially, I don't want to be wandering all over the place. So I'm going to make sure that that's tied up and clean on both sides. Now, also tying in, if you have the 2 light edition, if you notice it's still on, even though my ignition is off. It stays on for about 30 seconds, so you can actually treat it as almost like approach a runway or home lights in your car, which is pretty cool. So, all good to go. So what I'm going to do now, let's put all the plastic back on. Like I said, in just the same reverse order. Main piece, lower section, back section around the compartments, and you're done. I'll show you what it looks like when it's all wrapped up. All right, so as you can see, all back together and working. Looks great, no extra screws. Goes back together the same way of just those 3 pieces, that the back section around your storage, the lower section, and then your side fairing. Hey, quick test for the observant. If you noticed earlier when I had the fairings plugged in, they were on the wrong sides. Hey, but the good news is it's the same plug, so it works, So let's swap the fairings to the correct sides. So looks fantastic all the way around. I really love this, the way that it's gonna look. Give me a little extra visibility on the road. Blinker works, which is absolutely great. Let's check the other side. Blinker works. All right, absolutely fantastic. So all done, go ahead and clean up, put your tools away, and you're all done. So as you can see, really not a hard project at all. I'm really grateful for Schroedie for giving me this opportunity to show you how to install their product. I definitely recommend it. anything that gives you better visibility on the road, both running lights and with the blinkers, which is why I went with the 2-light design. I love that. Additional visibility on your bike is a great thing. This is a fantastic product, and as you can see, it's not hard to install. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I'll see you on my next project.